us. Welcome to Author Quick Draw. This is your permission slip to take a quick break from the hecticness of your newsfeed and hang out with me, Annie Bucknall, freelance feature writer and women's fiction author, as I get to spend some time playing Pictionary, giving away prizes and having fun with some of Australia's best loved authors. Now, we know that your favourite authors can tell incredible page-turning stories, but can they draw? We're about to find out live now in 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody, and a big welcome to Tricia Stringer.
Thank you. Hi, Annie, and hi, everybody else.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Guys, we'd love to hear where you're listening from home. I'm talking to you from Brisbane, and Trish, I believe that we're speaking to you in South Australia tonight.
Yes, I'm in Wallaroo, which is on York Peninsula. It's about 2 hours north of Adelaide.
Wonderful. Guys, if you can hear us loud and clear, just like the video, give it a love heart, whatever you do, and that'll help us kind of know that the audio is coming through clearly. Now, if you don't know who Tricia Stringer is, which I'm sure that you all do, she lives, well, as she said, in the beautiful Cooper Coast region of South Australia, where she's worked around stories in some form or another for most of her life before she became a best-selling author. She's written more than 13 novels across rural romance, historical fiction, and women's fiction novels, which we're talking about tonight. And she's an Australian name you're very likely to recognise. She's here to talk about her latest novel, The Family Inheritance, which I absolutely loved. I loved all of the books that I get to read on this show, but The Family Inheritance was just one that, it was just such a good drama with a big twist I didn't see coming. Just a really, really, really awesome book. So thank you so much for sharing that with us tonight, Trish.
Pleasure.
Okay, so how this is going to work tonight is we're going to talk to Trish about the family inheritance, her writing process, all that cool stuff. As we're doing that, she's going to be drawing a picture of one of her favourite movies. And then at the end of that, she's going to hold it up to the screen, and you guys at home are going to be able to try and guess what movie she's drawn. And if you guess correctly, well, the first person to guess correctly is going to win a copy of The Family Inheritance, which is really nice to kind of just go into that Christmas, summer period to tuck into.
Great.
Cool. All right. Are you much of a drawer, Trish?
No. I try and draw things and, I'm not much of a drawer. But anyway, I think I've tried to keep it really simple for tonight. So I'm hoping that people will be able to work it out.
Perfect. I'm sure that they will. And I'm not much of a drawer either, but you're a good sport, and that's what counts in this show. So that's awesome. So let's just kind of kick off you can start drawing anytime too, by the way. Let's kind of kick off by, if you can tell us a little bit about The Family Inheritance in your own words.
Sure. So The Family Inheritance focuses on 4 women in the story who are all from the same family across generations, though. So we've got the oldest, who's Hazel, and early in the story, her husband has died. And that leaves Hazel thinking that perhaps life will be a little different for her now, perhaps a little bit easier. And she finds that from the grave, her husband is still actually controlling her. At the same time, her long estranged sister Alice turns up and wants to reacquaint with the family, but no one really wants to meet with her. And then there's Hazel's daughter Felicity, and Felicity has a whole lot of things happen to her at the time around her father's death that turn her life upside down. And then there's the youngest member of the family, Felicity's daughter, Greta, who is just really wanting an easy life and finds herself trying to hold these older women in her family together. So it's really a story of testing these 4 women. Everything they hold dear, everything they believe in is tested in the story. So yes,
absolutely. It certainly is for all the characters. Their identities are tested, and you mentioned you wouldn't call him the male. We were talking about this before, but I'm wanting to say the patriarch of the family, but that doesn't feel like the right word either. But he's the man that passes away at the beginning of the novel, and whose will just kind of sets the novel, the events of the novel going. Yeah. But I was saying to Trish before, and if you guys have read The Family Inheritance, let me know if you felt the same way. But I absolutely detested Franklin, and I meant to detest him, so it's okay. But he was never even on the page, and I was like, how good was this book and this writing that I had so much vitriol for this character that he wasn't alive throughout any of the novel, really. So yeah, have you had a lot of that reaction from readers?
Certainly people have said that they dislike Franklin, poor Franklin, but he is seen on the page through the eyes of these four women who all knew him. So Hazel is his wife, Alice as his sister-in-law a long time earlier, Felicity as his daughter, and Greta as his granddaughter. So each of those women, he played a different role in their lives. So we get to know him through them. And so I found in writing his character that helped me because I knew them very well. Yeah. And so then they, talked about Franklin and how they reacted to different things. But I also had to have a fair understanding of him as a character before I started writing about him. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's very interesting when we talk about, and we'll get into that a little bit later, but, marriages and how the expectations of power dynamics and things like that have changed over the generations, and really in not that shorter period of time. Just some comments coming through from people who are fans of yours and have read the book. Nola says, me too, Annie. She was not a Franklin. She didn't like Franklin either. But yeah, just to point out, he is pretty much the antagonist of the book. Joe Reed says that it's your best book so far that I've read, and that she's hearing the same from others. So some really, really great feedback as well. Sue Bennett, hi Tricia, just love this book as I have all your books. Congratulations on another top read. So some really good feedback, and if you go and have a look at any of the reviews and things online as well, a lot of people are saying the same, that they just adored this book. So you obviously have a reputation. You've written about lots of different things, but most recently, a lot of focus on family dynamics. You're really good at writing families that feel authentic, because the families that you write about, they're complex, they're messy, just like real families, and that gives them a quality that we all kind of relate to when we're reading it. What is it about families that fascinates you so much that gives you enough kind of steam to write, book after book about those dynamics?
Oh, families are wonderful. No family is the same. What is a family? A family is a group of people brought together by a link of perhaps a blood link, or not necessarily a blood link even, it's just that wonderful dynamics of different people, different ages, how they come to look at things, how they view things, and bounce off each other and throw in a few, quirky things that happen along the way. And we're all different, and families are all different. And there is, once upon a time, you used to say, when I was growing up, there was, the average family. I don't think anyone dares say that anymore. What is the average family? We're all different. And that's what makes it beautiful. And that's what makes it so rich for stories, is that, we can draw on anything from that.
And that's a really good point too about the average family looking different these days, because there really is no average family. But what you get when you read these sorts of novels that have that generational link is an understanding that there really wasn't an average family back then either. There were just expectations and things that people had to hide a lot, and that causes, pain and toxicity and all those sorts of things too. So I guess that the acceptance we're moving towards about what a family actually looks like, probably is a lot healthier. In this particular novel, one of the beautiful parts of that is that you do actually write, like you said, from multiple points of view. It's about the three generations of women, and with writing those three people who have been through such different experiences, yet have that same link of I guess some issues to varying extents of power dynamics in male-female relationships. How did you tackle getting into the headspace of three, well, not wasn't just three characters, but like those characters from three different generations?
I think I spent a lot of time observing people, obviously. There are aspects of all sorts of people that I already know, people that you come across, and you just think about, they're never modelled on anyone in particular, but they spring from ideas. Like a friend of mine was telling me about her neighbour down the road who suddenly came out of her shell after her husband had died, and she, an older woman, and she suddenly started joining in with the community more and belonging to some clubs and taking up a sport and things like that. And, that made me wonder, well, why? What has, changed? Obviously her husband died, but why was that so significant? And, so there's those sorts of things are happening in us, in the world around us all the time. So it gives you little ideas, and they sit away in the back of a writer's head. And, you're a writer, you know how they bubble away there, and you never know when they're just going to pop out and be important to one of your characters.
And obviously you're drawing inspiration from all different parts of your life and your experiences and the experiences of others. Was that one of the key inspirations behind the family inheritance, that story that you just told, or was there something else, or how did it kind of come to you?
That was one of the things. I often say to people that people ask me how long it takes to write a book, and physically, when you first start writing those words, it's, I guess, a year in progress with edits and all of those sorts of things. But the book itself the ideas start long before, when they're percolating away. It could be years of these little ideas that just bubble away and then come together. So the other thing in the family inheritance is that inheritance is not just, what we inherit physically as far as money and assets, but what we inherit physically from our families as far as genetics go and things like that. So this story also involves that. And I did draw on my own family experience of, in our family, we have the cystic fibrosis gene that is passed on, but we didn't discover that until my great-nephew was born. I say great-nephew. My sister and I are quite, there's an big age gap in between us. And so my great-nephew is now in his 20s. But when he was born, it was discovered he had cystic fibrosis via the heel prick test, which wasn't, when my children were born, that wasn't something that they tested for. But I don't carry the gene, but my sister did. So it was passed on, and, so those sorts of things. Lots of people live with inherited disorders or diseases or a tendency towards something that is passed on through genes. So that was the other side of that trick. The title I love, because I couldn't think of it. Usually I know the title of a book before I even start writing it, and I could not think of a title for this book. And in the end, when I subbed it to my lovely publisher, Jo, I just said, "Can you help? I cannot think of anything." And she came up with the family inheritance. And it's just perfect. As soon as she said it, I said, "Oh, that's just it," because it covers everything in the book. It's, so much more than just, whether you great uncle leaves you some money,
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? That's what brings me to a question I had about family dynamics and things too, because when I was reading it, I was really struck by the family inheritance being an emotional inheritance too, like of the lived experiences of one woman to the other, and how each woman is trying to help, I suppose, create a better life for, her daughter or her granddaughter and all those sorts of things. And part of that, really is that in the family inheritance, once Franklin's gone, it really does open up those, those women to start doing that work of healing from those toxic dynamics and things like that. How important do you think is it for families and individuals to really take a look at the things that aren't working and start to, in their unit, and actually start to work through those? Because that's essentially what this book is about, bringing those secrets and those truths into the light and working out a better way to function together.
Yes, it's not, and I mean, I'm not a counsellor. I just do my very best in the stories to have people work through something, and it might not be what suits everybody, but obviously it works for my characters. And I just think it's important that they get the opportunity to do that. And you mentioned earlier that I started out my first books were rural romance, and the idea of a rural romance is always that it ends happily for now. You know, obviously there's some hope and some love, and I wanted to take that over into my general women's fiction, in that people feel that there is hope, and that there is some healing and some connection and something for them. And that's the sort of feedback I'm getting from readers. I just had the loveliest email from an older gentleman who bought my book. He's read some of my other books, and he bought this book from me, and he told me, I'd met him and his wife before, and a while ago, and he told me that his wife had died the previous year, and I suddenly was like, oh, do I want to read? You know, I said to him, oh, you know, and I just had the loveliest email from him saying how it just helped him work through some things that he needed to work through. So I thought, oh, thank goodness, I was worried. But yeah, so people are finding that by reading the story of these women, it's sometimes helping them to think things through for themselves.
That's really great, and that's, I think, the power of fiction, is that you're able to explore some difficult topics in really safe ways. And, you know, there certainly is an uplifting feeling to the novel, and that element of hope is really strong throughout. So, you know, while it's got the family drama and the things that are coming out, and everyone's reacting and working through that, they are working through it, you know, in their own way, in their own time. And having those three different generations and those 3 points of view, or it's 3 generations and those multiple points of view on the actual things that are happening, just kind of helps keep those pages turning as well, and help you see what was happening from all different sorts of angles. So that's really, really good too. There's just some comments coming through now. Oh, that's really nice. So Kay Darling says she's read all your books numerous times and she can hardly wait to get your new one.
Beautiful.
Wendy says that she loves your books, Tricia, and she's looking forward to reading them over the holidays.
Oh, hi, Wendy. Thank you.
Karen's read 3 of your books now and she's loved them all. So there's some lovely people tuning in who just are absolutely big fans, and some great comments for us to go through later at the end of the chat, guys, as well. So that's really beautiful. One other thing I just wanted to kind of touch on while you're still drawing there is, we talked about how you had to get in the head of Franklin a little bit and kind of understand things from his perspective. And it really got me thinking about, you know, marriage and power dynamics and how much things have changed from, let's say, my grandmother's generation through to my generation, what the expectations are of men and women in a marriage, and what they might have been back then. So it really did help me kind of understand perhaps how women, you know, before me may have been living. I think that we do get examples of that a lot. But even just when Alice and Hazel are talking about marriage and talking about relationships, and Alice helps Hazel recognize that, you know, things may not have been as healthy as she thought they were between her and Franklin. I guess what I'm wanting to know is, do you ever kind of feel that, is that part of the reason that you sort of try to include, or that you've included that voice, is to sort of explore what we might still need to learn about how our grandmothers lived and how things have changed?
I think it's just important to know why people act the way they do. You know, we meet people all the time. We see people in the street, or, you know, people that we don't know so well, and we think, well, why don't they just, or why are they doing that? But we don't know this whole big story behind why they are like they are. So I think, yes, Hazel couldn't see the wood for the trees, except that she felt a release with Franklin's death, perhaps, rather than a lot of grief.
Yeah.
But yes, she was just thinking, oh, well, I'll just go on now. But the rest of her family, I guess, helped her, or forced her in some ways, to unpack why, you know, what had happened in the past, and perhaps see it in a slightly different light, so that she could then move on.
Yeah, absolutely. That's certainly very true. How are you going with your drawing?
Well, I think it's finished.
Okay, awesome. Very exciting. All right, so we're not going to get... That's okay. Basic works. Basic is easy to guess. So if you can just hold it up to the camera and kind of just like pan it across and we'll get people to guess. There's a bit of a delay in the guesses, so don't be worried if it takes a little bit of time. All right. Okay, just hold it up a little bit higher, maybe a little bit closer. All right, guys, can you see that? Okay. All right. Oh, yeah, okay, yep, getting it. That's really good, Tricia.
I was a junior primary teacher. This is the best I can do.
You were a junior primary teacher. That's really awesome. All right, guys. So we're getting. It's a bit of a theme for this time of year. It might be. Oh, look, we've already got a guess.
Yes.
Here we are. Okay, Linda asks if it's Home Alone.
It is.
Well done. Good work, Linda. I'll contact you after the live stream tonight and get your details, and we'll organise for a
Thank you, Linda.
Well, you know what, Trish, you did well because there's lots of guesses coming through now. There's a bit of delay for Home Alone, so they must have been able to pick up quite easily what that was. I mean, I really want to watch that now. I'm going to have to add that to my Christmas watch list.
You know, one of those Christmas movies that, well, I watched it when my kids were young, and we're still watching it.
It is absolutely a classic. So we like to ask some questions on behalf of our writing community because, you know, it's a really supportive, lovely community, and they read so much, and just having that opportunity to talk to someone like yourself and ask a couple of things about your process and your craft is really beneficial. So tonight what I'm going to do is actually swap over to one of my good friends, Caroline Ann, and she's going to ask a couple of questions, and then we'll hand back to me and wrap it up for the night. So I'm just going to remove myself from the live stream and add in Caroline.
Hello, Tricia.
Hi.
Oh, it's so lovely to meet you. I'm an aspiring author, and I'm a huge fan of not only Author Quick Draw, but a huge fan of your work. So it's just it's a huge sort of thrill for me to be here tonight. So thank you for allowing me to be part of this. I just wanted to start by saying, look, it was such a pleasure to read The Family Inheritance. It's just such a beautifully crafted, relatable story. And, you know, the tension just kept ramping up as the mysteries and the secrets unravelled. You know, I just enjoyed every word of this riveting page turner. So thank you for that. Now, I do have some questions on behalf of my fellow writer viewers. As we're all aspiring to achieve the same kind of success that you have, we're keen to learn some of your secrets. So I'll start with a bit of a basic question. And I must admit, my first question was going to be, how long does it take to create that first draft? And I think you've already answered that to a certain extent, because you did mention 12 months. So I guess as part of that, I'll add in then, you know, the good old question, you know, are you a plotter or a pantser? So maybe the two questions do fit together a bit.
Yes, I am, you know, sometimes, well, it's pantser, but organic is the word that I use. I spend a lot of time before I start putting words on a page, thinking about the characters and the setting and what might, you know, how they might all come together, and you know, the ideas behind the story. So it takes a while, you know, before I start actually writing anything down. I jot notes sometimes, you know, when I'm thinking about characters. If they come through quite strongly, I might start writing down a few of those key concepts that, because I have a notebook for each book that I write. So I keep, you know, just a page on each character, and there's not a lot. I don't write a lot on those pages, but you know, sometimes it's I get myself unstuck with ages, especially because I write generational stories. So I need to make sure I've got the right ages and, you know, those sorts of things. But it's really getting to know the backstory of the character, so that when you meet them on that first page, I know why they are at this point, and now we all go forward together. And so during the story, you will find out little bits about them that I already knew before I started writing the story, but that will gradually be woven through the story. So that takes quite a while. And then, yes, the actual writing part is roughly a year. I have to write that draft, rewrite it, however many times it takes me to get it tight enough to send to my publisher, and then we go through the editing process. So now, did I answer all of your questions?
You did. Yes, you did actually. And I can imagine there would be a lot of mental preparation even before the writing begins, because certainly in the family inheritance, you know, there's just a lot of really sort of complex, intricate relationships between the characters. So that doesn't surprise me that there's a lot of preparation before the actual writing. It really shows.
And the tricky part is that without giving any spoilers for those that haven't read it, there are some characters in the story who I imagined would be, they're not main characters, but they are minor characters who I imagined had a particular role to play in the story. And it changed. And I went, oh, whoops. So I had to go back and rethink how that then affected other people and, you know, the movement of the story. So that happens sometimes, and I think that's part of the organic thing, that in my head I might say, oh, well, I know this is going to happen and that's going to happen, and then it all turns around and it doesn't go that way at all. And I think that's kind of the scary part, but also the exciting part of being a bit more organic. Sometimes I think I wish I was a plotter, so I knew exactly where the story was going and I could just sit down each day and follow it along, but it doesn't work for me.
I can relate. Okay, so my next question is a bit relevant to me personally, and I'd like to know, do you ever suffer from self-doubt, Tricia?
Yes. The answer, simple answer is yes. Every book is, you know, and there's often a part through it, and I've talked with other writers about this, and often, you know, a lot of my friends are in the same boat. You know, you get to a certain point and you think, this is absolute rubbish. Who's ever going to want to read this? And it happened with the family inheritance. It's happened with the other books. So I just have learnt now to shush that voice and keep writing. Just keep writing, because you cannot really work on whatever it is that's bothering you until you've finished it. And once you've got that whole story down, then you can go back and look, was that really as bad as I thought it was? Or actually it's now worked out because this has happened and that's happened. And so, yes, you just have to be strong enough to quiet that voice, to ignore it. I mean, you don't want to ignore it totally, because sometimes it's there for a reason. It's, you know, you really are going the wrong way with the story perhaps, or something's not quite right, and it makes you stop and think, okay, do I need to dig deeper here, or is there something missing? But I think really you can do that when you're finished anyway. That this is just a first draft. This is you telling yourself the story, getting it down, and then so you can go back and, you know, add, change, delete, write more, whatever it is it takes to finish it off.
Oh, look, that's great advice. So ignore that nasty voice telling me to doubt myself. Good advice, and keep going. Oh, thank you, Tricia. Listen, I'd love to keep chatting, obviously, but I'd better hand you back to Annie. I think she's going to let everyone know where they can find you on socials and perhaps find out a bit more about your next work. We're all very excited to find out more about that, I'm sure. So thanks again, Tricia.
Thank you, Caroline. Bye.
Thanks so much, Caroline. Oh, Tricia, what is the goss? What are you working on next? Do we get a script?
Well, it is actually done for next. Well, no, done. No, it's not. My first, not my first draft, my second, my third draft. It's been sent to my publisher, put it that way. It's not done by any means, but it's the story of three women, this time not related. And events have brought them together, and it's how they interact. You know, I like that often there are lovely relationships between people that aren't family relationships, but, you know, lovely friendships that develop, that happen. And so this is a book about that, more about, you know, those friendships. Once again, the women are different ages, so I like that generational thing, because I think that appeals to lots of people, and it also appeals to me. I mean, my friends and family are all across ages. So I think we all mix with all sorts of people. So I like the idea of that.
Yeah, I like it too, and it really works so well.
My publisher likes it too.
Yeah, well, you know what? Then it's a win all around, and there's certainly people in the comments who are saying the same thing. But I just want to ask one more question on behalf of someone in the comments who wants to know. We will ask that for you. Hang on, where is it? Okay, Carol Russell. She wants to know if you're going to do any more of the Flinders Range series.
Oh, Carol, I never say never. The funny thing about the Flinders Ranges series is that book 4, there are 3 books in that story across the generations of a family that comes to Australia in the early days of settlement. And the funny thing is, when I first imagined that story in my head, it is the next generation. So I haven't written it yet. So that story I first wanted to write is still in the notes, in my head, wherever. And so I went backwards. And every time I went backwards, I thought, oh, but there's more. And so, yes, book 4 is in note form, and I'm hoping one day I'll be able to write it. But so I'm not saying never, but I'm just not sure when.
So it's a maybe. Oh, that would be so good. So do you have plans to go back and write any more of rural romances, or are you going to be continuing down the women's fiction, or you just kind of go with what story comes up for you?
Well, that happens a bit. I mean, I talk to my publisher about this a lot, and at the moment the general women's fiction seems to be very popular. And it's going really well, and I'm loving it. I also love rural romance, and I really like the historical as well, but I can't write any more than what I'm writing at the moment. So I just keep plodding along at this point and see what happens. Yeah, I'm not discounting anything.
Yeah, fair enough. And I mean, I guess in the career of an author, they're long careers and anything can happen. You can find yourself in all different kinds of exciting stories and places. So if people want to make sure that they can get keep up to date with you and, get the latest news on your new releases and your life, what's the best way for them to kind of keep in touch?
Well, I have a few. I'm active on Facebook and on Instagram, and I also have a website. So all of those places, and I do a newsletter 4 times a year, and some bit of behind the scenes information and a few giveaways and things like that I do in the newsletter. And so yes, all of those places, happy to talk to people, or even if they send an email, I try and answer all emails as quickly as I can. Not always, sometimes I'm a bit slow, but I will get to them eventually.
Oh, that's really lovely. Yeah, we wouldn't want to take you away too much from the writing, but it must be nice to receive those, that personal touch, like you said, from the email you receive from the general.
It's so nice to hear from readers. Yeah. Definitely.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Look, there's still some wonderful questions coming through for Tricia, but we've kept her very long tonight. So we will. There's lots of people who are just so happy to talk to you, Trish. So what we might do afterwards is jump in and respond to some of those comments. So Tricia's been an absolutely fabulous guest. Very excited to be able to have her on. Tomorrow night is the last episode for the entire first season of Author Quick Draw. So I'm very thankful to our brave authors like Trish who joined in. And we're finishing off with the very talented Pamela Hart, who wrote The Charleston Scandal, which if you love The Crown, you'll absolutely love this one too. So please join us tomorrow night for our last little bonus episode. And Trish, really, really appreciate your time. You've just been a delight to talk to.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for guessing my draw.
It's about time for that cuppa now, don't you think? Thank you so much for joining me tonight, guys. I hope you had as much nerdy fun as I did chatting to some of our absolute favourite best-selling authors. You will never believe the people I have lined up for us in the next couple of weeks. So to make sure that you don't miss out on any of the fun or really any of the giveaways, be sure that you've liked and subscribed to my YouTube channel, Annie Bucknall, or like me on Facebook, where we go live at 7:30 every Thursday night. You can also find me on Instagram at annie.bucknall, where I share more of my daily life and my daily battle trying to write a novel and file freelance feature articles with a toddler in tow. It's good fun.